How did you decide that you were ready to branch out? So you started in with, I think you said building pools.
What's going on, guys? Chris Work here, ProfitDig. Thank you for joining us from the ProfitDig Construction Show. I'm here this evening with my partners Jeff Givens and Jeff Spencer. How's it going, fellas?
Hey guys, good. How are you?
Fantastic. We've got producer Jerry behind the camera as always, and we have a very special guest this evening, Jeremy Perkins, the Entrepreneur's Intervention. It's available on Amazon. There's a link in the description. We encourage you to check it out. We've covered a lot of these topics this evening. It is very, very good stuff, and I know you could learn from it. Jeremy, thank you for being here.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me.
Appreciate it.
Love this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, likewise.
That's good. Well, and you've got a lot of experience, so we went through kind of an emotional story, like with you to hear how you've gotten here today, and
That's fantastic.
I guess for me, I'm most curious to know, like, once you started seeing that things were turning around, you now have, I think you said 3 different companies with five or six different areas that you're invested into. Like, how did you decide that you were ready to branch out? So you started in with, I think you said building pools, and then that was the house of cards that eventually grew into a lot of things and then fell down.
Yeah.
And then I don't think you specifically mentioned this, but you said things started recovering after you went through, rehabilitation, got your life together. At that point, you're starting at zero, right? Yeah. Like, what was the first?
Actually, pretty substantially negative.
So negative.
Zero would have been pretty cool, right? Yeah.
Zero.
6 figures negative.
Yeah. 6 figures negative.
Never discredit the value of zero.
Would have been great.
That's great to put that in perspective. Don't let me belittle the zero.
That's right. Yeah.
That zero looked pretty good.
Yeah, that zero was great. When I got to zero, I was like, shit, I'm made.
Only one way to go from here, baby.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. So what was it? So you're in the hole, and like, what was your catalyst? Like, did you just think like, all right, first step, get out there, start making some money to start recovering, and like, or did you immediately have a big vision and you're like, let's put all these things into play, or was it baby steps?
I learned through recovery. Before, in the beginning, I would have just tried to do everything at the same time, and that would have been short-lived again. But thanks to recovery and some of the lessons I learned through there, they say you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. And so I had that mentality from the get-go, and I was like, okay, what's my largest debt? And what's the fastest way from A to B to take care of that? And I wouldn't focus on anything else but that, and then the next one. So I had to make certain amounts of money just to pay these debts off. And, I was making amends to people too. Like, there was things that I did that was totally above board. And I would make people money for it, Whatever the case was, I was paying the highest debt. I was making amends to whoever that person was, and I was moving on to the next one. And don't get me wrong, I was negotiating these debts too, especially on the, if they were corporate debts, I was negotiating the hell out of them. I said, I'll just file bankruptcy. It doesn't matter to me. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to get paid, or do you? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
You want to sell it, or where are we going? And fortunately, I never had to. I actually had papers to sign for bankruptcy, and I could have went to zero real fast that way. But I've always been competitive, and I thought, you know what? I think I can do this. I think I can get out of this the right way. And so that's what I did.
So practically, what did that look like? Does that mean like you're doing trim work, you're doing pools again?
Yeah, all of it. I started selling jobs. I had no truck. When I came out of it, I had no truck and no money and no tools. And so, I've always
seems like a big hurdle.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm going to sell a job, But I was on the general construction side, so I could sell a job out to somebody that has tools, truck, and employees.
So you took a GC approach?
Yep. So the GC approach really is what got me there. And so I was using other people's time, energy, and money and creating value out of it, and then taking the value I created to pay down debts and keeping up with it in a way that was sustainable and not, reckless. And keeping good intentions behind it. And the main thing was, being honest and having integrity behind me. And, with that at the forefront, I was able to do pretty well, pretty quick.
So some of those relationships that you said you were making amends for, both probably financially and maybe just reputationally,
Yeah.
right? Like just on a personal level. Going through that process of making those amends, like, are any of those fully recovered, or was it like you paid your debt and they're out? Like,
There's both.
you made a little mix.
Yeah, there's both. You know, there's people out there that, you know, you piss off and there's no, you know, that's it. You're dead to
Not
them.
gonna
They
rebuild.
the bridges burned.
You know, for my own mental clarity, like I've done what I could do. Like I've done exhausted every ability I can to make it right. And in my mind, I've done what I've done. I can't really control the other side of the street. But, you know, I had to have the hard conversation anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that really did a whole lot for me mentally and really cleared a lot of baggage inside my head that I could use and clear some of that fog that I could use in a more positive manner to, you know, get this thing back rolling, get the trains back on the track. So that was a big lesson for me of what that actually meant. It wasn't like oh, I'm sorry, you know, fuck, you know, whatever. It was heartfelt.
Yeah.
Because my intentions were pure. Like I really was sorry. I wasn't the same person anymore. I didn't want to be the same person.
It sounded like you even had just a complete mentality shift, whereas before when you described it, you were like,
just chasing money.
I was just chasing it, yeah.
Chasing money, you know, and money ran. And having money at the forefront of my mind, you know, it was greed. And so there was never a whole lot of positive or there was short-lived positive outcomes or what appeared to be positive outcomes from that, but nothing long-lasting
Yeah.
because there was no true value in it. Just blank pieces of paper, you know.
Right. Well, so now, I mean, you've recovered well, and at least where you're at right now, things are looking good. You've got a lot of diversification in the things that you're doing. How are you able to juggle all these? Because it sounds like you're a pretty busy guy. We appreciate you being here with us all the time. But like, how do you juggle all these responsibilities now?
I just let my wife do it. No, I'm just kidding.
Smart guy.
Yeah.
Get on Amazon immediately and get your copy.
That would probably be her answer.
So delegation.
So evidently she's not going to watch this podcast.
Yeah, we can delete that part, right? No, delegation is big. You know, finding the right person for the right seat is huge. Like, you know, having a CPA that understands construction, that understands real estate investing, that understands, you know, creative tax liabilities and those kind of things.
You know, that's something other people we've had on have mentioned too, is they've mentioned that their CPA, their financial advisor, whoever that's helping with
Has
the money,
got a critical role.
that they have at least
Best money
some
in the
experience,
Yeah.
like working in those businesses. I don't know, we've heard that 3 or 4 times now, I guess, but
Yeah.
Yeah, that's top. Having a good lawyer is key, you know, keeping us protected on our contracts and the different scenarios that come up. Having that relationship is key with us. You know, having my wife as my business partner is a huge bonus. You know, she's got an engineering mind. I've got a visionary mind. So she's like COO. I'm like CEO. That's somebody that if I didn't have her, I would have to seek out and find immediately. Because I wouldn't be able to bring a lot of things to life that I want to. And so I've learned that over time. Having somebody in that CFO position, you know, our CPA is sort of that. My wife is a lot of that as well. Keeping us financially smart and diverse in that respect to make sure the money's churning and always growing and not going in the opposite direction is key. All of our subcontractors. I mean, I've got 85 subcontractors who have, you know, a minimum of 5 employees and upwards of 20 employees. And so
this is, let's call it a Rolodex. You've built this list of subs over 6-7 years at this point.
Well, and your subs can make you or break you.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, if you get a good set of subs and you can hang on to them, I mean, you're money ahead, you know, and it's not always the case. It's hard to get the same subs over and over.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's crucial. I mean, these are my managers. Everybody, if I've got a framing crew that I can rely on, the lead guy that owns the company is the manager of the other 10. I don't have to manage those 10 people because he's managing them.
Right.
We don't have any employees. When I was in the previous times when I had an office downtown, I had 52 employees. And I was trying to maximize all my profits. I'll just hire them in-house because I'm not paying these fucking framers, whatever per square foot when I can pay them this. Yeah. Well, what's the result? Shit. One, I can't manage everybody. And two, I'm getting the bottom of the barrel friggin' employees because I'm just thinking they're cheap, but actually they're super expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and two things you gain by doing that, right off the bat, is you don't have to pay workers' comp.
Yep.
And you don't have to have, insurance. That's a major savings right there, and a major liability.
Yeah.
It's gone.
And did I hear you correctly? You have 0 employees.
Right now we have 0 employees.
That's awesome.
That's what you want it.
Yeah.
And what is it? Is it the minimum, 3 or 5? I think in the state of Tennessee,
where you got to carry workers' comp.
you got to workers' comp. It's either 3 or 5, then that workers' comp kicks in.
Yeah. You're talking.
Yeah.
You think, okay, well, I got somebody at $20 an hour. That's not bad. Well, you better add another 20, 20%. I'm conservative, so I'm like 20% minimum. $20 an hour is really, $24 an hour after you pay in to their taxes and the insurance, workers' comp, and the liability if something happens. What's the opportunity cost if they tear up the D6?
Somebody got to pay to fix it.
With a subcontractor, I've got a firewall. I have their insurance that's going to cover their mistakes, and so we're protected multiple ways. But anyway.
So maybe on that topic, you mentioned earlier about the equipment. You said you own your equipment. So the subs that you hire to do your work, they use your equipment?
Yeah, I've JV partnered with people. So I'll JV partner with operators who.
So what does that mean, JV?
We'll do a joint venture, they'll have their own company, but they don't have any equipment, right?
Okay.
And so I'll either, if I need to rent
I'm
equipment.
going to say you probably rent your equipment to them.
I can rent it to them. Yep. I'll charge overhead to the profit. I'll charge my overhead, like you talked about, for the equipment. What does it cost me to run this equipment?
Right.
Comes off the bottom line, and then we'll split the profit. That's how I've ran equipment a lot of times. Our own equipment, yeah. Which works out for people. Somebody that doesn't have any equipment, they can get 50% of the profit.
Yeah.
It's a huge value to that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge break-in too.
And I don't have to manage employees or worry about it. I got somebody that knows what they're doing, and that equipment's paying for itself. Essentially, the equipment's a tax write-off anyway.
Yeah.
I just needed a $100,000 or whatever write-off. I didn't want to get it to the government, so I bought a piece of equipment. I can reduce my cost by 50% as opposed to hiring a subcontractor. Yeah, I'm giving the guy. Some people, you're giving this guy half the profit. No, I'm not. I'm reducing the expense by 50% plus the tax write-off.
Yeah.
So it's a good deal for me, and I know I've got a comparable person behind the wheel, and not just somebody hired off Craigslist who claims that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It really doesn't.
Then when they unload that sheetrock to go through the upstairs window, they usually tear down the house.
Yeah. So
That's got to be the most country thing I've ever heard on this podcast.
we subcontract out dirt work too. I've only got a few pieces of equipment, and the amount of work we're doing, we can't have it on every job. But, I usually keep that on, our jobs, our spec jobs, and sub out the rest. But we try to get creative in all those different kind of ways.
So when you look at what you're doing now, are you still seeing with your vision? Are you still thinking why stop here? Let's keep branching out, or are you thinking let's master this first? Or a combination of both.
I would probably try to do everything at the same time if I didn't have a reasonable person with the engineer mind keeping it down.
You do what she says.
So there's a good example of, and we operate from this standpoint of how Disney actually operates. So in Disney, they've got different departments that operate. They've got a visionary. I can't quote the actual what they call them right off the top of my head, but anyway, they've got a visionary department, and they tell them, I don't care how crazy the idea is, if it's off the wall, whatever you can think of, throw out every idea you can ever imagine. You know, they're the Imagineers is actually what they call them.
Imagineers. Yeah,
I've heard that.
And so they'll throw out every crazy roller coaster, like shit that's not even possible. And they're like, don't worry about it, just throw it out there.
Yeah.
And then they got the engineering department. And what's funny is the engineering department and the Imagineering department aren't allowed to like socialize together. And if they do, like you'll get fired because it'll just ruin the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because the engineers say, oh, it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work. And then it'll just ruin the Imagineers' ideas and now they're gonna get less creative.
Yeah.
But it's gotta go to the engineers to be able to, can we make it work? And they'll dig it apart and tear it apart and just hammer it to death. And if it makes it to the other end, then it'll go down, you know, to the people that implement. And then I forget what they call the implementers, but it's the builders, you know, who can actually put it into life and bring it out to form. And they've always kept that strict process, and they've been real successful at doing it. And that's kind of how we do. Like, I'll just throw out this crazy shit, my wife will fucking just tear it out. It does kind of suck. You know, and of course we communicate socialize because we're married, but it does suck. But I know in the back of my head, like that's what she's supposed to do. That's her role. That's what's keeping us profitable. That's what's keeping us moving. That's what's keeping us growing at a sustainable rate and not imploding. You know, at the end of the day. And then we have all of our subcontractors and everybody else that implement, who we want the best of the best, and we don't mind if we're paying more than anybody else. I don't care if I pay $2 more a square foot than you do. I'm glad to, because I know that at the end of the day I'm going to have a product that's going to last, it's going to reduce my cost through warranty and all that other stuff.
Yep.
And we just kind of keep that same motion going. And that's stuff I learned through masterminds, you know, just simple techniques like that to have checkpoints in what we're doing.
I've got one question I want to ask you before we close this one out, but when I was in business myself, it was me, my father, my brother, and my wife, she kept the books for us. For a long time, we ran a company out of our house. So to people that maybe want to start up a new business and kind of go into construction, whether it be structural or earthwork or whatever they may want to do, and you and I haven't talked about this, and I'm going to put this out there, and I'm hoping you're going to be able to kind of lead out with it, but where do you cut off? I mean, like, you and your wife, y'all partners, at some time or another during the day, it's important to shut the business down and have personal time. So, I mean, how do y'all handle that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's really hard to do because my wife and I both are super passionate about what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We sit at home and talk just like we're all talking right now. You know, we love it. You know, we work a lot, but we do take intentional time, and what we've learned to do is there was a time that we look back and we're like, damn, we ain't been on vacation in 3 years. Like, all we do is grind, you know, especially in the beginning when I was coming up, because I mean, you know, there was debts to be paid and still got to pay the bills. Right. So you feel like you're going backwards. But anyway, what we learned to do is schedule it first and work around it. We plan she's got our whole summer already planned out. Every vacation we're going to take, things that we're going to do with our kids, everything's already on the calendar. And then when somebody calls me and wants an appointment like this, if I already had something on there, I can't do it. I just got to say no. Yeah. It's already pre-planned. Right. That's been the best advice anybody's ever given me. Yeah. I've never missed a beat. Whereas when it was the other way around, I was like, well, I can't do that because I'm going to miss something. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Or I gotta work. I got something coming up. Well, hell, there's always something coming up. If it's already on the calendar, I got something coming up. Now it reverses it. Yeah. And then that person like, okay, well, we'll do it next week. Like if I couldn't be here this week, you'd have been like, well, fuck, we'll do it next week. Yeah. And I wouldn't have missed anything. Right. You know? Yeah. And that's what I've learned over time. Never missed anything. We do all kind of stuff. Yeah. Hell, we went to Europe for 14 days, 6 months ago. Yeah. And didn't miss a beat. You know, we're running 5 companies, from Europe, and it's fine. It's okay. We get the right people in the right seats, and we've got systems and procedures, and we schedule. We do it ahead of time. Everybody had a plan while we were gone, and it all worked out. So,
like my wife and I, for a long time, several years, it got to the point where the end of the day came. I came in out of the field. We'd eat dinner. We talk about work during dinner. We talk to the kids a little bit. Kids go to bed, go to their rooms. We sit down and watch TV, but most of the time the TV got muted because we were still talking about work. And it's like, next thing you know, it's 9:30, 10 o'clock, we got to go to bed.
Yep.
And it took us a long time to realize, that our marriage was starting to suffer. And, we had finally had well, actually, that's when we stepped out of the business. Things were going south anyway. And we saw that there was no turning it around. We need to shut it down now. But at that point, that's when we realized, our marriage is more important than any kind of business that you could ever be in.
Yep.
If you got to put your marriage on the line to make a business work, then
You're in the wrong business.
You're in the wrong business. Yeah.
I'll speak to that too. I mean, we're always looking for the expert in everything we do. We want I want a mentor, that's done twice as much as I've done. I can't learn anything from somebody that hasn't done what I'm trying to do. Same thing in my marriage. I look at it the same way. I'll go to a marriage counselor. My wife and I will go to a marriage counselor.
I kind of challenge that though, like as someone who's been both a mentor and a mentee. You can.
Well, the mentor learns from the mentee, for sure.
Exactly.
That's a fact.
Well, sure.
That's a benefit of mentoring someone.
And there's different approaches.
So, but as a mentee, I don't know that I'm going to go for mentorship.
You don't want to mentor someone who's less experienced than you.
Yeah, I will mentor someone that's less experienced.
Yes.
But I'm not going to seek mentorship from somebody because I don't know that I can grow in that scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all that to be said is same thing with marriage. I believe in marriage coaches, and I believe in a maintenance plan. Even when a lot of people will go to therapy or marriage counselor when shit's hit the fan.
Yeah.
That's great. But it's actually even more important when stuff's good, like that maintenance plan. And my wife and I have done that over time.
My wife and I have done that. We just call it a tune-up. It's like if the train starts to swerve off road just a little, it's like, let's.
Because if you don't maintenance your equipment, this shit's gonna go bad. And it's gonna be too late. Like you can't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the same way in marriage and business and everything else. It's all pretty similar. It goes back to the fact of why I said those 12 steps always made sense to me in life and in business, and not just it wasn't never about alcohol or drinking alcohol. It was like, how do I live?
That's a symptom.
Yeah. The alcohol is the solution. Like, I don't want to think about drinking. How to be a good husband. Or I don't want to think about these accounts due. These 15 bad checks. Fuck that. If I could just black out, I don't have to think about it. Problem solved.
I've got 12 hours of freedom, baby.
And same thing like going to a marriage counselor. Like, I don't want to fucking do that shit and spend an hour in here talking about my feelings. But the result of it is worth the hard conversations. And so, that's all it is.
Well, that's very good stuff, fellas.
Yes.
Gosh. If I get my hands on it. Guys, check this out. Entrepreneur's Intervention. Jeremy Perkins. It's an Amazon bestseller. He's been our special guest this evening. Jeremy, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate
It's been awesome. So check this book out. This is my copy. You can't have this one. I think it'll do a lot of good. So, Jeff Spencer, Jeff Gibbons, thank you as always. Producer Jerry, appreciate your work. Check us out. Looking for a bidding and costing solution. Visit ProfitDig.com. Hope to see you there. If you don't mind, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave us a comment. Let us know what you want to talk about. We'll see you next time.